Kick off our semi-finals now in the Hearthstone European Grandmasters. It's all come down to this, Subtle. Now that the relegation match is done, we can focus on the players that are vying for that one spot that is up for grabs this season for the World Championships. We have BoarControl versus SilverName as our first semi-final here. And it's looking pretty good again for BoarControl. I think his lineup is strong. He has put his faith in Druid, so we can talk about that in a little bit. But for me, SilverName, on the other hand, it's all just about that mage and if he can get a win. But so far, it has been doing the job.
Yeah, we can certainly try and refocus on these matches. It might take me a game or two to get over what we just saw, but I'm sure that these two players, SilverName and BoarControl, will very rapidly enthrall me in the here and now and stop me thinking about what we just witnessed. But of course, this is why we're doing it in this order, because we now get to celebrate some winners towards the end of the day, which is what we're here for, because one of these players is going to qualify for the World Championships to follow in the footsteps of such Hearthstone greats as Hunter Ace himself. And you do see the lineups, and you do see the big question mark decks, which I think you pointed out correctly. For me, one of them is the Druid on BoarControl's side, but I think definitely the Mage on SilverName's side is certainly a big talking point.
Yeah, and we've seen, again, just SilverName stick to some form of mage throughout most of this season of Grandmasters. He did mess around with Spell Mage a little bit earlier on in the season, I think in one of the Swiss weeks, which he did qualify actually in the top 8. But overall, seems to be just the type of deck he likes, this Reno Mage that he's been playing a lot. And as I said, he is in the top 4 now, so it's been doing some level of work at least. But it looks like BoarControl and SilverName are both going to start the match off with the Demon Hunter mirror. And again, similar to what I said last series, I think the most skill-testing mirror we currently have in Hearthstone.
Yeah, certainly right the way up there. You can see already these Bone Chewer Brawlers coming into play, a pretty new development in the Demon Hunter list, especially after Sightless Watchers have started to fall away. From most people's decks, it does leave a little bit of a hole in that 2-drop slot. It can quite often be filled by Umberwing or by combinations of 1-drops or even a 1-drop and a hero power because of the efficiency of the Demon Hunter hero power. But just having a vanilla 2-drop that can come into the deck and just be a reasonable on-curve play when you need it to be, and then at the same time be actually a very powerful disruption tool, both against Warrior, where if they have a 2-attack weapon, they're in trouble. If they're having to panic Risky Skipper for 2 AoE, which is quite common in the matchup, that can be a big problem as well. But also, actually, in this mirror, it can have a pretty big impact because you can see straight away BoarControl holding on to the Beaming Sidekick combination with Bone Chewer Brawler, which can make an enormous minion in the context of this matchup, and just create, essentially, I talked about the Tar Creeper comparison, you're basically just making an improved Tar Creeper at that point.
Yeah, and even now, we see with the Twin Slice pickup off the top, BoarControl can Twin Slice, Second Slice, and still coin out the Bone Chewer if he wants, and then follow up with double 1-drop next turn. He's going to go for the wider play this turn, but I imagine we are going to see this Twin Slice.
Yeah, certainly maximum tempo being taken here from BoarControl. No way you're leaving that Battle Fiend up.
And it's pretty unique,
a question
right?
of the multiple ways you wanted to go about doing it.
Because even in a lot of other aggro matchups or mirror matches, I think that as a general play would seem a bit over the top. But in the Demon Hunter mirror, it's what is required because the deck is so efficient at killing minions with the help, of course, of that 1-mana hero power. You do have to make the most extreme pushes onto the board and secure it as early as possible. Now, though, for SilverName, honestly, looks like he might just have to use one of these Umberwings and just get something on the board. I don't think anything else, for me at least, cuts it, because if he plays Sightless Watcher, he can set up for a decent draw next turn. But how likely is his play next turn going to be Umberwing hero power anyway? And if that's the case, you'd rather just have the more widespread minions, because otherwise BoarControl could just hero power and put his 1-2 into the Sightless Watcher and still have a 2-4 left.
Right. Going about it this way does also give him Chaos Strike options for the following turn to be able to contest the 2-4. But that is potentially now where Bone Chewer Brawler can come into play.
Demons. Demons.
Yeah, interesting choice here. Even this turn doesn't look straightforward, just because of the Battle Mage hero power play. He can trade off the 1-1 if he wants, use the hero power to kill the other one, and then just end the turn with a 2-4 and a 2-2.
I grow impatient.
Otherwise, he could just Bone Chew and double trade if he wants, but I actually do think I like the Battle Mage a little bit more here.
Okay, I like it.
Those without eyes truly see.
Beaming Sidekick draw here for SilverName. Might have just switched up his plans. So now he can contest the board with a big minion of his own as opposed to just playing removal with the Chaos Strike and Hero Power.
Yeah, tough call here. I generally like Twin Slice as the option.
Right.
He is heading towards being able to use the Gladebound Adept because that second Umberwing will mean it's active on curve.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, right? I agree with you. In a vacuum, I think Twin Slice is almost always the pick of just about anything, be it Sightless Watcher, be it Volpira Scoundrel. Like, if you can get a Twin Slice, get a Twin Slice. But his hand is pretty low value right now. He does have Chaos Strike to keep cycling a little bit and find things to spend his mana on over the coming turns. But I could certainly see the argument of just locking in a Gladebound Adept so he has ways to at least spend his full mana, at least on the next couple of turns. And it looked like that is what he went for.
Not like it to me. We'll find out very shortly, of course. Yeah, this is nice as well, although this does get farmed by the Battle Mage. It does mean that it's just a hero power, or in SilverName's case, likely an Umberwing away from being cleaned up and done with. Unless he's frozen, subtle, which he could be.
Or unless there's a taunt in the way, which there might be.
But not unless there's just hero power pass, which there almost certainly won't be.
Yes. Good, I'm glad we discussed all of these options, Raven.
I'm not even sure which one I like better. Trying to obviously remove the fact that I can see SilverName's hand. But from BoarControl's point of view, I think those were very close options because although we can see, yes, there is Umberwing into Chaos Strike to clean up this Bone Chewer, there isn't much else that really achieves that. Whereas if he saves the Shadow Weaver for going into turn 5, then you lock out the usual suspects, right? The Gladebound Adept, you lock out the Warglaives, of course.
Yeah, I like this line a lot. And now seems like Frozen Shadow Weaver is pretty essential this turn. Your opponent hasn't been holding any cards long-term in this spot. Beaming Sidekick and everything to the right of it obviously are fairly new draws. So there's no real read on there being a Gladebound in hand. But a card was selected off of the Sightless Watcher, which does suggest a potential big power play for turn 5 based on the timing of it being picked in the game and kind of the exact dynamic we talked about, whether SilverName would secure something to do, like a big power play on turn 5.
Demons? Demons.
Satan, hero power still isn't bad in any way, and it's a turn you often see on that turn 4 spot, right? But I think because there's not even if they have Warglaives or if they have a Twin Slice, well, no, you already know Umberwing's live. You can just 100% stop that swing happening next turn.
Right.
And I think that's maybe what just pushes it over the edge that little bit more, because he's guaranteeing some kind of positive outcome from this freeze and not a potentially positive outcome.
Yeah, that one freeze has now turned this hand into an incredibly sketchy one for SilverName. Satyr Overseer can't be activated, Gladebound Adept can't be activated. Right now, Beaming Sidekick is only landing on a 1-1 unless he wants to play one of these unactivated minions to land the Beaming Sidekick on. His only other alternative is Tempo Altruist, which seems pretty miserable.
I grow impatient.
Hey, he could like, yeah, it's not great, but in a weird way, he could like Altruis and then potentially even put the sidekick on the 1/1. Which sounds silly, but if the Shadow Weaver's going to kill the Altruis anyway, then the health doesn't actually matter, right? I do think that is a bit of a rough play, though, and I do think Altruis can get more value down the line.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, filth! Absolute filth.
There's nothing quite like back-to-back Shadow Weavers against the Demon Hunter, is there?
You can see just from this setup, though, how important SilverName playing one of his minions was here. Just to be able to contest the 4-3 on board. If he'd have tried to hold back everything, get super greedy with it all, he would be probably unassailably behind right now. Whereas at least now, he has that 4-2 in play that can start to trade down. This Metamorphosis coming through from Boar might still just represent too much damage for SilverName to be able to come back. He does at least give himself a chance. That's insane.
He can just use this.
Absolutely insane.
Although he doesn't get to swing, of course, these still proc the Altruis, which means that he can clear this board and buff the health on his Altruis, which is much better when it's on an empty board.
Yes,
Check it out from
Boar.
BoarControl.
Yes, really. He has it all. Everything that you think is about to happen is about to happen. SilverName deep in the tank about which one of these minions he wants to protect more. BoarControl's likely removal options. I told you it was there already, Boar. I don't know why you're so surprised. Do you not listen to me? Honestly.
And now the problem is, if BoarControl has to Metamorphosis down these minions, suddenly it's not there to finish out the game. It's there to survive for BoarControl now. Maybe he just has to Glaive Bound. But then we can see he's going to get the response.
He could just go. He could just meta and shoot his opponent in the face and say, you don't have 9.
He technically does have 2 turn, right? With meta, face, and then next turn he can Hero Power, and then Hero Power again to activate and swing with Glaive Bound.
Exactly.
I think that's his best chance, because like I said, First Instinct, and even sat here staring at it, if he starts having to Metamorphosis minions one at a time, he's just going to die one way or the other, isn't he?
Yep.
And 9, I think, is a reasonable ask. SilverName also is only playing 1 I-Beam in his list.
Right.
So, I think once you start just looking at the numbers and looking at the realistic outcomes, this is what just has to be done. Board's setting up 2 turn. Oh, Vulpera, though. Mana Burn saves him?
Mana Burn saves him, I-Beam saves him.
Does anything else?
Soul Cleave does not, because nothing to hit it with.
I grow impatient.
Twin Slice wouldn't get him lethal, would it? 8, 9, 10,
It would, so he needed 9 extra. This would be 1 extra, and then there'll be 4 extra from the Twin Slice, and he'd be out. So no, I don't believe so.
Mana Burn! But does he pick it? Of course he picks it.
Does he pick it? Of course he picks it.
I could cast this game of Hearthstone with just BoarControl's webcam. I'm pretty confident.
Yep.
We're with you.
And that means the 2 turn is not there. Oh, even the Twin Slice.
Oh my goodness!
So close! It's so close.
Why are you like this, Hearthstone?
I grow.
Nothing even keeps him alive, does it?
No.
If he uses a Twin Slice to trade, then it doesn't matter because those trades don't matter if you're going to die next turn anyway. If he uses the Twin Slice to go face and Glaivebound Adept, the most threatening minion, so the Altruis, then there's still just enough damage on board, and he cannot, the big deal, is the mana burns put him in a spot where he cannot press that hero power as well as play the Gladebound Adept. If he had one more mana, this game would even be over with that Twin Slice drop. He does.
Short. I yield for now.
Boar ropes it out. He spends the full allocated 75 seconds trying to find a solution which absolutely did not exist. But I do love the line that he took. I think, SilverName, I love the line that he took as well, because he really didn't have much choice. He had all of his choices taken away from those 2 consecutive freezes from BoarControl, and then from that point, he was just trusting his deck to hand him an option, and it did with the Vulpera Scoundrel, which then, again, following it through gave him one of the cards that he needed to be able to get himself out of jail there at the end. So a huge win for SilverName in the Demon Hunter mirror. But I do have a lot of respect for the way the Boar played it, just recognizing that the face was the place. It was probably his only out in that position to set up the 2-turn lethal and hope that there was nothing on the other side to shut it down. We were talking in terms of how does he find 9 to put together the lethal on the other side, but of course there were some tools to be able to disrupt that 2-turn lethal setup from Boar, and that is what SilverName found instead.
Yeah, and it does look like BoarControl is going to be switching it over to his Spell Druid, although I guess at this point we can start calling this the hybrid version, I suppose.
Yes.
Is that where we're going now? Because there are, as you can see, a couple more minions than normal and a couple of different spells. 2 of Wrath in there, but 2 Breath of Dreams and 2 Emerald Explorers. So not only are they reasonable big minions to generate dragons, such as Ysera sometimes as well, but also just big sticky minions with that taunt as well that can help against some of the more aggressive decks, such as Demon Hunter.
And also, very crucially, a single copy of Savage Roar and a single copy of Power of the Wild as well, which does shore up some of the weaknesses that I feel like this deck had when it was in its pure dragon form, which was Glowfly Swarm. Just wasn't a particularly good card. It was just fine. It was just some 2/2s, and that was it. Your opponent kind of knew what they were getting in that situation, and it was kind of up to them whether they needed to trade or not, because you were never going to leverage them. You had no payoffs cards in your deck to be able to do so. So now with that additional threat your Glowfly Swarm is a lot more effective, and also your late game Ysera boards, even if it's only 2 or 3 dragons in the late game, can represent lethal very, very comfortably with just the addition of that Savage Roar.
He's going to be going up against SilverName's Highlander Hunter, though, and it is running the secret package. Sometimes definitely not a fan of, but once again, SilverName is here in this top 4, so he's been getting wins with it somewhere.
Yes, Savannah High Name Hunter.
Yeah, sounds like it adds up to me. Here, though, SilverName does have a very good opening. Not really the 1 or 2 drops he needs, but most importantly, coin 3 into 3 into 4 seems more than good enough to me. That Stormhammer going to get some work in. But if you look at it, doing it this way, it means that you can Stormhammer straight into a dragon, and there isn't that like floating turn for no real reason. And this does just get a minion on board early as possible.
Yep, certainly like this curve, the way SilverName's playing it. Want to reduce that gap between the Stormhammer and the Dragon as much as possible, as you were saying. He does hit the Misha as well, which is most likely the best outcome. Against Boar's exact hand, where he wants to rip the Overgrowth here, then Huffer may have been better, but on average in this situation, Misha probably gets more damage in than a Huffer does, which is vulnerable to more removal than the Misha is.
Always interesting to see if the player or SilverName here is going to just go for that swing. He knows he's 99% of the time going to play that Feywing next turn to get an additional swing anyway.
Yes.
But it does interest me to see where players want to hold this additional charge, right? Because it does matter sometimes, because you aren't guaranteed, obviously, a dragon down every single turn unless you're an absolute hunter god.
Yeah, and it matters in both directions as well. That's the part that a lot of people actually miss, where a lot of people will have this mentality of, oh, I'll just hold on to it because it's safer that way. What does safe mean? Like, if your opponent's dead because you dealt 3 extra damage to them, that's pretty safe. They can't do anything to you if they're dead. So having the extra charge locked up maybe on turn 5, where he currently doesn't have a dragon earmarked, could be relevant, but also just that extra 3 damage that he pushed through this turn could end up being very relevant. There's also the kicker that if you play Evasive Feywing on 4, how is it getting removed? Isn't that also just your dragon for the next turn anyway, because it's going to stick around on the board long term?
Exactly the point I was going to get to as well, is that because it's just exactly Feywing is the turn to follow up with, you are almost always guaranteed a swing next turn. And then there's, even if you want to and you're feeling aggressive, which I think with SilverName's hand he definitely should be, he has Varanus into Dino Tamer Bran, which is just an absurd amount of damage.
It is.
But BoarControl is at that point now. Tons more mana, of course, than SilverName is often the case with Druid, but Mount Seller on 7 with the active spells of the double Bog Beam. Can't really use them both.
Yeah.
And he might even have to go for just a Moonfire face kind of play here, just for the extra minion.
Right. Promising ball controllers never
Griffin.
wanted to dive in Griffin any more than he did right now.
Griffin would be mighty fine. Oh, close.
You know.
Does he ever Bog Beam his own minion here?
The 2/4, right, would be
Yeah.
the acceptable one, I imagine, if he wanted to do that. I can certainly see an argument for it. He doesn't have additional payoffs in his hand for that Bog Beam right now.
Oh!
Ooh, okay.
Oh, he missed the real play, Sol.
Uh-huh.
Doing that and then Moonfiring his own armored dude to finish off the Feywing with the trade from the 6-4.
Oh, yeah, order! Oh, Bull, what are you doing? You absolute amateur.
Always got to keep an eye on these players, I'm just saying. With the Face Stalker in hand for SilverName, his secret that he would get if he chose to Face Stalker Hero Power is only the Freezing Trap. Again, I talked about this all season because we've seen this deck dip in and dip out, but I just don't really know what Freezing Trap hits in many matchups we have. But still, it is the one secret that's left. It's just Snake and Freezing Trap.
I agree. I think it's a weird, very weird card to run right now.
There is just Unleash as well for just some extra push here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the way this game wants to be played out from SilverName, I don't think he's going to hold off for a Varanus Unleash turn on turn 9. I think you're very often dead by then. Or you've already killed your opponent one way or the other. So I do like it being used up here. Is this all face? Is this just the ultimate play? Love it.
Yeah, I like this too.
And again,
Snake Trap in play. You just saw a million spells get used, so you know that these minions might have to respect trading. Boar has 7, 9, 13 damage of his own, going back the other way. Plus 10 is 23, plus Crystal Power, your own Porcupine.
Yes!
However, there are minions on the other side of the board this time around. Like, rest assured, no caster is ever allowed to miss that ever again after we saw it twice in 2 back-to-back days, I think. But this time there are those minions on the other side of the board that can get in the way.
But also, after this, at least the Savage Raw's been played, there is an extra minion for BoarControl too. You know, he might get a rush minion to bring this down a little bit.
Right.
And it's one thing, another reason I like this from SilverName is BoarControl's list only runs one Savage Raw as well. Only runs, it's one Power of the Wild? Yeah, only one Power of the Wild. So there's, although yes, you can't just say, oh, well, you've always got to play around double Savage Raw, you do have to at least consider it if it's in the list. And it's the same with the Power of the Wild. But with only one of it in each for BoarControl's list, it is just less likely to be a super heavy punish for going face.
We must stop this corruption.
Ah, the old cycle. Emerald Explorer into Emerald Explorer. With the Varanus. Wait, and the Corrosive Breath. Whoa. Can't do it all this turn, of course, but suddenly we're just looking at so much damage output, and I think most importantly, SilverName can get this Mount Seller killed off this turn.
Yeah, this Varanus is absolutely insane. I think this was a real, I didn't quite get to talk about, SilverName's learn in detail, because then immediately, the Savage Raw Porcupine thing came up instead. but like I think it was really smart to do what he did because he saw so many spells get used that if he just generated a big board and went face, as long as he wasn't immediately dead, which he wasn't just to Savage Roar, which I'm sure he counted out, Boar then has to do the trading for him. And no matter how much he trades, he's probably going to be left with a few small tokens in board, right? With the Snake Trap coming down alongside the Unleash the Hounds. Which means that he then sets up for the Varanus play on the following turn to then be able to push lethal with Dino Tamer Brand the turn after that.
Really nice execution, honestly, because as you mentioned, what would BoarControl actually have to do to stop being punished by Varanus there?
Yeah.
Almost the impossible, right? Like the cards almost just don't exist, especially when he only had, what, 4 in hand or 5 maybe at the time?
Right. Create a swipe in his deck that wasn't there already? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
There is now, though, the second Emerald Explorer, which was the discovered one, so he still has another one in deck.
Dino Tamer Brand, and this time, Dino Trader Brand is the absolute nuts in this scenario, Raven. It's very rare to see, but the Dino Trader is coming through absolutely clutch, allowing the 10 to go face from Varanus and the weapon, and SilverName finds himself 1 game away from our finals here of Grandmasters Season 1.
Yeah, and I think that was just very well played there from SilverName. Even if we go all the way back to just talk about the weapon swing, right? He had 1 charge still left on his weapon. He swung 1 clean, and he ended the game with perfect lethal there, and the weapon still existing. So really strong. It did help by the fact that they had coined 3 into the weapon, and then the ever important Feywing in the deck there, just to be ready to get and push some damage and keep the weapon activated over the course of a couple of turns for SilverName. Huge game there, but it's all going to come down to this. It's going to come down to we've spoke about the most, I think, throughout the whole season of casting SilverName is his love for this class, the Mage, and is it going to be good enough? I think you said yesterday, right, that it's you see as outside of Shaman and Paladin, next on your list, if we're going from bottom to top, is Mage.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably accurate. I just think it's underperformed miserably so far throughout Grandmasters. But again, like, I will also hedge that by, going back to the spiel that I made at the start of the show, which is I'm sure someone else can make a compelling argument why Mage is a better bring than, Druid or Rogue or Warlock or any of those other 3rd and 4th classes that we're seeing come through. And I'm sure SilverName is one of those people. Might have trouble understanding it due to the language barrier, but I'm sure we could find some sort of sign language solution that would allow us to discuss this at great length. And SilverName, as I mentioned, is a great player, but I do find myself disagreeing with his lineups more often than not. But sometimes we just see turns, micro game plans, macro game plans, like we saw in the previous game, where it doesn't really seem to matter what deck he's playing. He can usually just execute it to a degree that gets him over the line.
Yeah, and it's one thing I just love about the game, honestly, is however good you are at the game or other people are at the game, there's still disagreement, there's still discussion going on about, well, what's better, this or this, and no one really ever gets to just truly decide, and that's what keeps things interesting, right? SilverName, he's in top 4, he's in the semi-final, leading 2-0, and he's got here by bringing Mage most weeks. It's done something right, and we see that even with Druid, right? Look, I don't think I've ever seen the pro player base so split on the quality of a deck right now that we have with Druid. Right. So I feel like people either think it's completely trash or it's insane, as we've seen the last couple of days. Multiple players hit rank 1 with the Druid. I think Tyler did it on a couple of servers. I saw Wyra do it, I think either this morning or yesterday. So it's super interesting and really crazy. It's why I like the game so much. So we'll see now, though. SilverName kicking it off on this Mage, of course. The only deck he has left to get a win with. BoarControl, though, going with a Druid, and that is a pretty good-looking draw as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, his hand was doing absolutely nothing until that draw. Does lose a Mount Seller for his troubles, but it did also help him find that overgrowth in a timely fashion, so I think that's a trade-off you'll be willing to take. I mean, it just is a trade-off you're willing to take because you play the card in your deck. And if that wasn't a trade-off you were willing to take, you'd be cutting it.
I also feel in this matchup, not that it's one I personally have tons of experience in, is that Mount Seller is not as integral as it is in a lot of the other matchups because Mage has reasonable single target removal. It does have freeze as well to lock out a lot of the boards. The only good thing Mount Seller, or the really good thing Mount Seller does in this matchup is mess with, say, rolling fireballs and Renos, which we can see in for SilverName, just because of the high health it puts on board.
I always wonder about tempo Rusted Raider because, like, technically it's anti-tempo, right? Because you're giving up a resource that can deal 5 damage for one that does 1. Obviously, paying for it now is where the tempo part comes in, but it's like, you know, it's highly questionable. Not something that I've really like got comfortable with in my own mind, but generally against Druid, playing your minions is what you should be doing more often than not. So I certainly can't criticize it too much.
Yeah, and it's that midway, isn't it? It's a great card to help beat down like a Mount Seller, right? 5 damage on that high health total is huge.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, if you wait till they've already played a Mount Seller, then you have to commit 5 mana to not even kill it. Is that just too little too late? And I think SilverName is more than happy to see things like this happen, right? Where his minions early on are soaking up Bog Beams, they're soaking up attacks, and he isn't getting pressured because, again, BoarControl is still, although not playing the double Savage Draw list, still has access to some big burst damage opportunities later in the game.
All right, hear me out. What if we just inner fire this thing?
I'm okay with that. If you ever give me a plan that involves getting a big minion to hit face, I'm probably just on board. Like, won't really argue too much about it. I mean, it looks better than just playing a Bone Wraith, right?
Is that too cute?
I guess the question is, and again, no disrespect to SilverName in any way, but does he know Zephyrus will give him an inner fire?
I'm
extremely
confident Zephyrus will give him an inner fire.
It's not a play you often try for, though, right? Is my point.
Right.
It's not something that really comes up that often at all.
If you pinged face first and then played Zephyrus, I'm pretty confident you will get an inner fire here.
Just gonna go for the Bone Wraith. The definitely less flashy, less aggressive, but more steady plan. I guess I'll go for. Just play another minion. Another awkward taunt to punch through for BoarControl. Just keep on trucking. There's the one-off Power of the Wild, making a bit of an awkward board here for SilverName.
What was I thinking of again?
SilverName would get offered a Shadow Flame from the Zephyrus, right?
Hey now.
Yep, should do.
So he could even Arcane Breath the 4/6.
It doesn't help him out that much. Unless you,
It does, right? Because he bumps it
with the ones that,
yeah.
Bop it. Yeah.
Bop it. Yeah, and then you can go Zephyrus Shadow Flame. Again, not the craziest Zephyrus, but I think one that solves a bit of an awkward problem for SilverName.
Right.
And then he has the Tortollan, and then he can just edge his way, hopefully for him, just towards that Reno as an emergency button for his 10 mana plus plays.
Yeah.
Or turns, should I say.
Question is whether he wants to use his Arcane Breath or whether he'd just rather use both minions, since his Arcane Breath isn't active right now in terms of the discovery, no dragon in hand. Might still be worth preserving some health on his minions, though. Or on his Bone Wraith, at least.
I think so, because you've got to remember, he's going to lose his Zephyrus as well. So he's not going to get to keep that, is he? So he may as well keep the one minion he still has at a good health total alive.
Right.
Or at least, like I said, on that high health. I think that's reasonable. And again, I think all SilverName wants to do is just bridge the turns until he can get to his turn 10. So I'm not saying he has to play Amazing Reno on curve, it's just he knows then, no matter what BoarControl does, he can just play, okay, I don't like this board, Amazing Reno. I really like this play.
I always like the third option in situations like this, because like it's always going to be silly, because obviously there's only like 1 or 2 cards that are good in that exact scenario, but like Blessing of Kings, great, thanks.
So what's he want me to bless him again?
Yeah, right.
Like, Does it want me to Blessed of Kings one of my opponent's minions just to end this quicker? Also, that's what it feels like when it's offering me that.
Yeah.
Do you see BoarControl there, though, in that Fungal Fortunes? He is going to discard the Ysera. So he's going to make this even worse for himself now as his hand does a whole lot of nothing, honestly.
POC.
Boom! Or could we just be seeing a 3-0 here, Sol? Because BoarControl's close to just effectively pass. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say. There's not much he can do. SilverName cleared the board with the Shadow Flame, made the follow-up, and it was just enough. BoarControl did not have the threats.
Absolutely not. It was just one of those hands. Obviously, the Mount Seller got discarded to the Fungal Fortunes. The ramp was there. Solo Glowfly was there, but the Soul of the Forest only just came a little bit afterwards to be able to make it extremely sticky against those Zephyrus removals, which would have made all the difference. So just the options weren't there, and we kind of saw a similar thing in a different series where it was a different matchup that didn't put on so much pressure quite so quickly, but where Mage can get to that mid-game safe and sound against Druid and started playing the big bombs of their own, that's going to be trouble. And then here we are. SilverName is sat waiting in the finals of Grandmasters Season 3, awaiting the winner of Yala and Bunny Hopper. And again, I have been in this guy's corner for a number of years at this point. I think he is an incredibly solid player, lineup choices aside, and I could not be happier to see him being given the opportunity to shine once again on the biggest of stages. But he is not done yet. We still have Yala coming up against Bunny Hopper, and we still have the winner of that to try and take down the might that is SilverName in our finals.
Yeah, I'm sure, again, just his legion of fans is going to be incredibly happy for every single stage he gets through, right? And even just winning that semi and getting in the final, such a huge deal to his community. So that's really good for him. And I think he played very well. And we just saw the power of the curved minions. We saw the Bog Beams just going into a Twilight Drake early on. Meant that even if there was a Mount Seller, there's just less powerful swing turns. We saw that there was Innovates and Moonfires, but it's not the swing on board of killing off with the Bog Beams it normally helps with. So unfortunately, for BoarControl, but I think let's not forget BoarControl is obviously safe in Grandmasters, but also had an incredible season. He did super well in the Swiss. He got top in his division as well, which placed him a bit further forward with that seed in his group. He won the one match he needed to win to get through. Didn't even need the safety net of the loss that he did have. So I think, again, although it's over for BoarControl for this season, congratulations to him. I think he played very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will never stop saying nice things about BoarControl. I think he's an incredibly entertaining streamer in his own unique little way. I think he's an incredible Hearthstone player. I think, watching him sort of come up through the UK scene when I was still playing competitively and then just extremely rapidly surpassing me to the point where, I'm now just learning from him every single day has been absolutely awesome. So long may it continue. I'm sure Boar has a world championship in his Hearthstone career at some point, even if it's not going to be just this season.
Yeah, but congratulations to BoarControl. Congratulations to SilverName. We'll be seeing him in the final a little bit later on, but we've got one more match to do before we get there. It is going to be Bunny Hopper versus Yala, and that's going to be coming up after this break.